And we've got an extended interview with the founder of the internet sensation Mob Kitchen. All that and more. For the next hour, it's On the Money. After the GB News headlines with Rhiannon Jones.
Good afternoon, it's 1 o'clock. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. Number 10 has apologised to Buckingham Palace after it emerged two parties were held the day before the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral. Downing Street says it was deeply regrettable that they took place at a time of national mourning. Restrictions meant the Queen had to sit alone for her husband's funeral the following day. Sir Keir Starmer says the apology shows how seriously Boris Johnson has degraded the office of Prime Minister. The Labour leader renewed his calls for Mr Johnson to quit. An Australian court has ordered Novak Djokovic to be detained from 8 a.m. tomorrow. He will, however, be allowed to attend his lawyer's offices to prepare his case. It follows a government decision to revoke his visa for a second time, saying it was in the public interest. The unvaccinated tennis star previously won his court appeal against being deported. The first Grand Slam of the year starts on Monday. Harry Dunn's alleged killer Anne Sakulas will no longer face a court hearing on Tuesday. That's due to ongoing discussions with the Crown Prosecution Service. The US citizen is accused of causing death by dangerous driving following a fatal crash in August 2019. Sakulas had diplomatic immunity asserted on her behalf by the US government and was able to leave the UK. Virginia Giuffre says she's pleased a judge has ruled her civil sex abuse case against the Duke of York can go ahead. Ms Giuffre says she wants to expose the truth. Prince Andrew denies all of the allegations against him. It's after the Duke was stripped of his royal patronages and military titles. A royal commentator, Dickie Arbiter, says Andrew's legal team now have some difficult decisions to make.
He's had his comeuppance. He's going to have to now fight this case. He's got several options: fight the case, pay off. But paying off comes at a price, not only the value, but also an apology. An apology then is seen by many as an admission of guilt. He's in a no-win situation, and being in a no-win situation, there's no way back for him.
French authorities say a person they pulled from the water in the Channel has died. It's after a boat believed to be crossing to the UK got into difficulties. The tragedy follows the news that 271 people made the treacherous journey through freezing waters yesterday. That's more than in the whole month of January last year. The government will hold a review into how a Chinese agent was able to get so close to senior British politicians. It comes after MI5 warned the agent had been interfering in UK politics. China has denied the allegations, saying it has no need to buy influence in any foreign parliament. Security Minister Damien Hines told GB News MI5 issued the alert to put a stop to the spy's activities.
This is an example of our system working, having detected it and then using this notice to disrupt it and to warn effectively other people. So, as I say, you know, it's the system at work, and these notices are one tool that the security service has at its disposal. But what we've seen yesterday is a disruption of this activity. I'm afraid that we're likely to see more of these in the future.
First Minister Mark Drakeford says Wales will return to alert level 0 by the end of January. That's following a rapid decline in COVID cases. From Saturday, the number of people allowed at outdoor events will rise from 50 to 500. From the 21st of this month, limits will be removed completely. COVID passes, however, will still be required at larger events. North Korea has fired what appear to be two new short-range ballistic missiles. It's in response to fresh US sanctions against Pyongyang. The missiles travelled over 250 miles before landing in the sea. It's the third weapons launch by North Korea this month. Members of Insulate Britain were released from prison this morning after they broke an injunction preventing them from protesting on roads. They're among 10 people who were jailed for breaking the government's injunction on the M25. Members of the activist group took part in a series of protests that staged blockades on major roads between September and November last year. This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens, but for now, let's return to Liam and On the Money.
Coming up on today's On the Money, the UK economy grew strongly during November, expanding faster than expected. In December, though, and into 2022, the figures could show GDP shrinking again due to Plan B anti-COVID restrictions and ongoing labour and supply chain shortages. We debate the UK economy which way now. As ever, a grown-up discussion with people who really know their stuff. Plus, we return to our On the Money campaign to scrap the VAT. If it matters to you, it matters to us. And that's why, as household utility bills spiral, we're highlighting the need to cut VAT on fuel, after so many of you contacted us with your concerns about the cost of living squeeze. Plus, for today's in-depth Money Talks interview, I'm talking to Ben Liebus, founder of Mob Kitchen, the viral online cookery platform encouraging people to prepare food they'll actually eat.
Today I'm making a creamy andouille linguine without any cream. Let's get to it.
The Mob Kitchen founder, live later in the show. And as ever, I want your questions, opinions, suggestions. What do you think of the issues raised in today's On the Money? Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet @gbnews. We'll read out some of your messages later in the show, so stay with us. This is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan. You're On the Money. Now, nearly 2 years after the UK experienced its biggest economic collapse in 300 years, the economy's finally returned to pre-pandemic levels. New figures show that gross domestic product, or GDP, that's the combined commercial activity of individuals, firms and the government, grew 0.9% in November, almost twice as much as expected. That suggests the overall economy is now bigger just than before the pandemic, with GDP 0.7% larger than in February 2020. That's the last month before lockdown began. So on paper, at least, it's good news. The UK has, quote, fully recovered. We've taken our time, though, getting there. One reason is that the UK's outward-facing retail and service-driven economy was particularly hit hard during lockdown, with our GDP plunging in 2020 more than any advanced economy. That's one reason US and Swedish GDP returned to pre-pandemic levels last spring, almost over a year ago, while China took just a few months. Britain, though, is catching up. And this bounce-back effect is one reason the International Monetary Fund says the UK will grow faster than other advanced nations in 2022. But will that actually happen? While the UK economy did grow in November, as today's numbers show, when the December figures are published, they may indicate that GDP is shrinking again, given the impact of the Plan B COVID restrictions, not least on travel and hospitality. Growth may also be slowing right now, during early 2022, given elevated inflation, April's incoming tax rises and spiralling energy costs. Those pandemic-related supply chain bottlenecks and labour shortages may also linger, again slowing the economy down. Official data suggests 3% of the British workforce is currently on sick leave, off due to COVID symptoms, self-isolation or quarantine. That 3% is the highest figure since June 2020, the height of full lockdown. The UK has a deserved reputation for economic grit, resilience. We will put COVID behind us. We will build our economy and society once more. Yet, while today's GDP number is good news, our economy could go backwards before it goes forwards again. And that's our On the Money question today. The UK economy, which way now? As ever on The Money, grown-up discussions with people who really know their stuff. Joining me, Julian Jessup, former Treasury economist, friend of the show, and another friend, Vicky Price, Chief Economic Advisor at the Centre for Economic and Business Research. Welcome both to you. Julian, let's start with you. Great to have you back on the money. I think it's the first time you've been on in 2022, so happy new year. What did you make of today's GDP numbers for November? Faster growth than expected. What's going to happen in the months since then?
Well, first of all, the numbers were pretty encouraging. I know in one sense they're old news because they're before the tightening of the Omicron restrictions and before the increases in energy prices and taxes that are going to hit growth this year. But they at least suggest that the economy had a bit more positive momentum going into that difficult period than we thought before. I also think that despite those sort of additional headwinds, there's some strengthening tailwinds behind the economy as well. In particular, the labour market is very strong. So wages are picking up and job security is improving. There are signs in lots of the business surveys that companies are starting to be willing to spend a lot, and there's huge scope for catch up there in business investment. And the Omicron threat itself is fading. So yes, we're pretty uncertain about exactly what the economic number is going to be for December and January, but whatever the hit is, I think it will be quickly unwound, and we'll be looking at some pretty strong growth numbers, particularly in the second half of the year, once we get beyond those humps in energy prices and the tax increases.
There will be a bit of an economic hit when the December numbers come out, says Julian Jessup, maybe into January, but that slower growth will quickly unwind, returning to faster growth as we bounce back. What do you think, Vicky?
That's quite likely. If restrictions are then eased, we're seeing already that is happening in Wales, for example, and elsewhere. We're going to see also here the isolation period having been reduced.
That's right.
So
from 7 to 5 days, just
really
announced.
It's from 7 to 6. We really look at the details of it.
And you never miss the details, Vicky Price. I know that.
But nevertheless, it is an improvement. But the interesting thing is what happens in December, and you're quite right to focus on this.
Yeah.
Because what we've seen with the PMIs, which is the Purchasing Managers' Index, this is the surveys that are done.
Yeah, they're like a preemptive GDP number, not official, but based in commercial reality.
That's right. Well, what we've seen is that manufacturing continued to grow, but not as fast as before in December.
Yeah.
And retail, or services rather, continued to grow, but again, at quite a low pace.
Yeah.
But they were positive.
Yeah, indeed. So they weren't shrinking.
Indeed.
So the economy wasn't going backwards. It was still growing, just not as fast in November.
But on those statistics, if you like, on those surveys, that's what it shows. But when you get the overall economy and you look at what the impact is across, which is what the Office for National Statistics does, you may find that, in fact, that data isn't as accurate as you'd like it to be. It just gives you an indication, but it also gives you an indication of the way forward. So you talked about what happens next year. The interesting thing is that in those surveys, both services and manufacturing were positive about 2022. So I think that supports, if you like, what Julian is saying. But there is no doubt that a number of firms have taken a hit. We've seen already over Christmas and in early January the reduction in the number of firms that have, or businesses that have been fully trading, or have been open, and increased squeeze in their cash positions. And I think that's what we need to be worrying about. What's going to happen to all those firms with huge debts, which are finding yet again having increased costs because of the COVID restrictions and everything else that's going on around them, and people perhaps less willing to go out and spend in the future.
And of course, everything we're saying is on the assumption that the restrictions will continue to be lowered. There won't be another nasty variant. There won't be another lockdown, which, of course, is a political as much as an economic and even a medical question. Julian Jessup, back to you. I often hark back here on The Money to the autumn budget when Rishi Sunak adopted the Office for Budget Responsibility growth assumptions. They were 6.5% GDP growth in 2021 as a whole, reflecting the bounce back, 6% GDP growth in 2022 as a whole. My view is, because of the bounce back, if growth does stay positive in December, as Vicky suggests, then we may get 6.5% overall GDP growth in 2021. I can't see 6% GDP growth in 2022, not with these ongoing supply chain and labour bottlenecks. What do you think?
Well, I'm a bit more optimistic. I think, first of all, looking at 2021, the 6.5% number published by the OBR and used by the Chancellor was already out of date because we'd had some upward revisions to some of the back data. And based on the figures we had today, I think actually growth in 2021 is probably going to be nearer 7.5% than 6.5%. As for this year, 2022, I think we probably will get something around about 6%. That's a lot better than expected. The consensus in the markets now is probably near 4.5%, 5%. And it's because of those positives I mentioned earlier, the strength of the labour market, rebound in business investment, and some of those headwinds fading, in particular within inflation. I mean, I've been bang on as you have about the upside risks of inflation over the last year, but I think markets are possibly now getting too pessimistic about that. There are some signs that pipeline inflation pressures are beginning to ease in some of the surveys. There is an energy price shock to come, but there are things the government can do to help offset that, whether that's cutting VAT or other green taxes or top-up benefits for those that need it most. So I think we'll probably get through the inflation shock, and the underlying strength of the other fundamentals in the economy will produce another year where growth is stronger than anticipated.
Julian, the markets are weighing on your every word. Maybe you've got to rein it in a little bit. Great to see you here on GB News. Julian Jessup there, former Treasury economist, and Vicky Price, you're going to stay with us. You're watching On the Money with me, Liam Halligan. After the break, we'll be joined by Tory MP Greg Smith on how to solve those soaring energy bills. What does he think of GB News? Scrap the VAT campaign. We're going to find out. And keep your emails coming. Are you struggling to heat your home? Are you having to choose between heating and eating? Let us know. And we'll read out some of your emails later. Stay with us. You're On the Money.
Hello again. Some parts woke up with dense fog this morning, but that will mostly be replaced by sunshine today. Some low cloud and fog will linger, and it'll be damp in the far north as this weather front clears, but the rain tending to peter out. On the broad scale, the weather is dominated by a large area of high pressure with light winds and dry weather for the vast majority. And once most of that fog lifts, we will see some sunny spells across much of England, Wales into eastern Scotland. But a few fog patches will remain, for example, parts of the West Midlands, perhaps parts of southwest England, seeing that stubborn fog. And where that fog lingers, it will be chilly, temperatures not getting out of the low single figures. Otherwise, 6 to 8 Celsius in the south, a bit milder for the north of Scotland, even if it is rather damp here. 10 Celsius the max in the far north. Outbreaks of generally light rain and drizzle in the far north of Scotland. Some low cloud for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland. That will keep things frost and fog free here overnight. But fairly extensive low cloud, mist and fog will develop across large parts of England and Wales, particularly eastern England. Low cloud also affecting South Wales, central and southwest England through the night. And this low cloud, mist and fog will be slow to clear if it does clear during Saturday. Some places staying grey and gloomy through much of the day with poor visibility, especially for eastern England. Some brighter spells further north and west, but a few showers also possible for western areas and the far north. Another cold day where that fog and low cloud lingers, temperatures not rising above the low single figures. And then a lot of cloud remains into Saturday night. But one change on the way, a band of rain pushing into the far northwest as we end Saturday. That'll sweep south across the country by Sunday, clearing the skies, leading to sunnier conditions in the north during Sunday, but cloud remains further south.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world. If
you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. Whether you're watching on TV or listening on GB News Radio, you're on the money with me, Liam Halligan. Now, household energy bills have risen sharply in recent months as wholesale gas prices have risen. And in April, as the household price cap is lifted, bills are set to soar once more. Well, after a tsunami of GB News viewers' emails about this cost of living squeeze, on Monday, here on the money, we launched a GB News campaign for VAT on those energy bills to be scrapped. We call it Scrap the VAT. Since we launched Scrap the VAT, the Labour Party's devoted an entire Opposition Day debate to stating the case for removing VAT on fuel bills. Numerous MPs from all the main parties have added their voice to their campaign. And yesterday, the charity Age UK came on the money, putting their weight behind this GB News effort to scrap the VAT.
I think that's a really necessary measure for the government to do. It's something that we're calling for. We share, GB News's campaign on that issue. We think it can be a blunt instrument, but we have to bear in mind there's lots of vulnerable people that aren't eligible for other financial support that the government provides now or the government might provide in the future, depending on what options they decide. So there's those people that have incomes just above the threshold for benefits. There's those people that are eligible for benefits, but they're not claiming them for whatever reason. And if you just think about that, those are people that are eligible for low-income benefits and are not claiming them. That means they're really vulnerable. As you mentioned, older people feel the cold more. They have health conditions impacted by the cold. They might be living in homes that are really energy inefficient. And so they're more expensive to heat. And so that's why, we think older people are a group that really need extra support with their energy bills.
Joel Lewis there of Age UK makes an important point. The most vulnerable, lowest income households may well qualify for the winter fuel allowance as their energy bills go up. But millions of just about managing households not eligible for fuel-related benefits may qualify for no help at all. And that's why scrapping the VAT, while it'll only take 5% off their energy bills, will benefit everyone, saving the average households around £100 a year. Joining me now to discuss this is Greg Smith, Conservative MP for Buckingham, and Vicky Price, Chief Economic Advisor at the Centre for Economic and Business Research, is still with us. Greg, thanks for joining us here on The Money. Very nice to see you. What's your view on whether or not the government should now move to scrap VAT on fuel bills?
Well, I have an enormous amount of sympathy for that position. As you said in your intro just there, it is just 5%. And in the scheme of things, the way bills are already going up and the way we expect them to go up in April, we probably need to find a way to go a bit further than just 5%. But 5% will undoubtedly help. I was one of about 20 Conservative MPs that signed a letter that got some publicity a couple of weeks ago saying we need to scrap VAT on fuel, and we also need to look not to dismiss net zero, not to dismiss the environmental challenges we've got, but to look as we transition away from fossil fuels and to greener technologies at securing our own domestic energy supply so that we're not as reliant on importing gas and other power and fuels from abroad, but are actually looking to shore up our own supplies to try and do something about stabilising the market. And thirdly, to look at some of the green levies that exist on energy bills, on electricity bills, for example. Green levies can be up to about 23-24% of the entire bill. And I think we need to take a step back to look at where the industry is, where technologies are being developed by scientists and the private sector to deliver green energy in the future, and to try and take the state back a couple of steps in that to get that burden off people's fuel bills.
Now, your colleague Anne-Marie Milton, in the Labour Opposition Day debate in Parliament on Tuesday, actually voted for the Labour motion to scrap VAT on fuel bills. And the government whips took the whip away from her, a sort of parliamentary slap on the wrist. It seems the government is quite nervous about moves within Parliament to try and force the Treasury to do what we're now allowed to do because we left the European Union, and actually scrap VAT on fuel and make it zero rated. Greg, with your political antenna, do you think there is movement in the Treasury? Do you think there is movement in Downing Street on this issue, albeit at the moment they've got their mind on various other problems?
I think the mood music in Parliament is very much in favour of doing something about fuel bills, and VAT is one of the few levers the government actually has to make a difference. You know, you can't buck the international market, but you can do something about the levels of taxation. If I may, just on the vote on Tuesday, it was not a straightforward vote at all. In fact, the Labour Party could well have got Conservative support behind it if they hadn't made it more about the Labour Party getting control of the House of Commons order paper rather than a straight vote on whether VAT should be reduced on fuel bills. That might sound all very procedural and technical, but actually it's a really important point that what Labour were actually asking people to do in sort of the ineptitude of their opposition at the moment was essentially take away control of the business of the House of Commons from the elected government and put it in their hands. And I think you and your viewers will understand why Conservative MPs, bar one, who, as you said, lost the whip over it, just couldn't surrender control of the House of Commons business to the opposition.
It's like the Brexit wars all over again. Vicky, let's turn to you. As Greg was saying there is a sort of head of steam behind this idea. The Prime Minister's previously claimed removing VAT is a blunt instrument. But as Joel Lewis of Age UK was saying, there are lots of pensioners who may not qualify for those targeted winter fuel allowances that go to the most vulnerable, but they're still going to get hit by these bills. They may still go into fuel poverty, have to choose between heating and eating, even though they're not receiving specific benefits.
I think it's going to be a problem not just for them, but also for the entire population that's going to have to pay a lot more and have to decide whether to spend on fuel or whether to do something else. But I think the Chancellor and the government will have to make quite an important decision as to whether they put all the cost for either renewables or for collecting tax in that area on the consumer who's buying that electricity or gas, or whether they want to do it through general taxation.
Indeed.
And of course, what's happening in other countries is that they have decided that they're going to be either putting a block on increases in prices or a very small one, like in France. So they say, I think, if I remember correctly, about 4% increase, and that's all. But then, of course, increasing taxation in other areas to make up for it. And of course, for the Chancellor, that's quite difficult because just a couple of months ago, we were hearing that what he was hoping to do is reduce income tax by at least 2 percentage points near the next election, whenever that would be. Well, it's not going to be like that. I mean, we have to decide as a nation whether we just want to pay for that, whether it's for green as well, through general taxation, or whether we want to have the consumer, which has been exactly what's been going on right now, paying for that directly.
Greg, let's come back to you, if I may. I interviewed David Frost earlier this week. We showed some of the clips on The Money yesterday. He made the point in his interview with me, look, if we think environmental progress is an overall good, it should be paid for out of general taxation rather than out of specific people's fuel bills, as Vicky Price was explaining there, because for poorer people, their fuel bills are proportionately a much higher share of their overall income and spending because fuel is a necessity. Do you think that's an argument that the government may use to try and justify scrapping VAT?
I think that's it's a very fair point that Lord Frost makes, and taxation should always be about proportionality and fairness, and just whacking a chunk on someone's fuel bill is never going to deliver that proportionality. Where I would possibly go a step further is to say that there's plenty of green technology being developed without state subsidy, without taxpayer subsidy. The creation, for example, of, whilst it won't power people's homes, synthetic petroleum. It's being done all off the back of the private sector. Now, I accept that every green solution we need isn't going to come out of private sector investment. However, I think we've got into a state of affairs where there's this broad presumption that green technology needs to be paid for by the taxpayer, when in reality, I think we should be leaning far more on industry, as many of the oil companies themselves are doing off their own back, to come up with the solutions for the future, rather than this very broad brush presumption that if the state doesn't do it, no one will.
Vicky, the kind of rumours emanating around Westminster and Whitehall, I'm picking up news that what the government is considering is helping the energy companies. They don't have to pass on massive cost increases to households by lending them money in order to offset the fact that they're having to pay much more for the gas that they then sell to all of us. That strikes me as, I mean, if that does come to pass, we'll debate it many times here on The Money, but what's your basic impression of that, your first impression of that as an idea?
Well, it's been asked, in fact, it's been discussed for a while as a possibility, as an alternative, but it may not be a complete alternative. You may have to do more than one thing. But of course, government, I'm afraid, will have to intervene in the sense of providing relatively cheap loans to allow for that increase maybe to take place over a number of years, and supporting, therefore, the energy companies, which, as we know, have been in deep difficulty anyway. But we are, of course, getting also Ofgem's announcement about the cap. So those decisions...
Just on the 7th of February, right? It's coming soon.
So when those decisions will need to be made very quickly.
The bills won't increase till April.
Yes.
But 7th of February is looming.
Indeed. So if there is any agreement of that sort, I think the energy suppliers have been suggesting that is perhaps one way forward. And that may do. But of course, remember, we're talking about possibly a 50% increase in April. Wholesale prices have gone up considerably more than that. And all we can do is just hope that for the future, because of course they're all set in terms of what happened before, for the moment, that for the future we do start seeing that decline in gas prices, and therefore perhaps things will improve for the future. But in the meantime, nevertheless, I think it will leave energy companies sort of exposed and dependent entirely on the government for the future.
It's a complex, fast-moving situation, isn't it? It's domestic politics, it's geopolitics, many, many factors coming to bear on these household fuel bills and the increases expected in April. Vicky Price, great to see you. Greg Smith, Tory MP for Buckingham, fabulous to have you with us. We look forward to welcoming you back to On The Money. Thank you both for your time. This is On The Money with me, Liam Halligan. Coming up, it's today's Money Talks interview with the Mob Kitchen founder, the man on a mission to get us eating better. But first, the GB News headlines with Rhiannon Jones.
It's 1:33. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. Number 10 has apologised to Buckingham Palace after it emerged two parties were held the day before the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral. Downing Street says it was deeply regrettable that they took place at a time of national mourning. Restrictions meant the Queen had to sit alone for her husband's funeral the following day. An Australian court has ordered Novak Djokovic to be detained from 8 a.m. tomorrow. He will, however, be allowed to attend his lawyer's offices to prepare his case. It follows a government decision to revoke his visa for a second time, saying it was in the public interest. The unvaccinated tennis star previously won his court appeal against being deported. The first Grand Slam of the year starts on Monday. Virginia Giuffre has welcomed a US judge's decision to allow her civil sex abuse case against the Duke of York to go ahead. Ms. Giuffre says she wants to expose the truth. Prince Andrew denies all of the allegations against him. It comes as the Duke was stripped of his royal patronages and military titles. Harry Dunn's alleged killer, Anne Sakulis, will no longer face a court hearing on Tuesday due to ongoing discussions with the Crown Prosecution Service. The US citizen's accused of causing death by dangerous driving following a fatal crash in August 2019. She was granted diplomatic immunity by the US government following the collision and was able to leave the UK. First Minister Mark Drakeford says Wales will return to alert level 0 by the end of January. That's following a rapid decline in COVID cases. From tomorrow, the number of people allowed out at outdoor events will rise from 50 to 500. From the 21st of this month, limits will be removed completely. COVID passes, however, will still be required at larger events. TV, online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. We're back at the top of the hour with more. See you then.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. You're on the money. Now, lots of you have got in touch about today's show on rising energy bills. Alex says, with the massive increase in fuel bills, the increase in national insurance and the current tax bans remaining unchanged, there can only be one way for the UK economy, and that's recession, or worse still, stagflation. Bit pessimistic there, in my view. David says, Robin Hood stole from the rich and he gave to the poor. Rishi Sunak steals from the poor and he gives to the rich. I see what you did there. Marjorie, my electricity costs are up nearly double. Yes, a VAT reduction would be a step to help, but the government must, providing extraction costs are viable, renew extraction of our own oil and gas. A lot of you have made that argument about more fracking. And a writer who goes by the great name of Grumpy Old Man is actually me. No, that's a lie. It's not true. Given the energy cost increases, the Chancellor must be laughing all the way to the bank. Thank you, Grumpy Old Man. Thank you all of you for your emails. Keep them coming. We love to hear from you. gbviews@gbnews.uk. It's because of your emails that we started this Scrap the VAT campaign. Keep them coming. Now, it's a big day in the world of tech. And good news for the UK, with the mighty Google shelling out for £730 million worth of new office space in London. The move will expand the tech giant's UK capacity by 50%, raising headcount from 6,400 to 10,000 people, as Google bets on a return to ordinary office working. But as Google continues to grow here in Britain, Facebook is being sued for up to £2.3 billion in damages over its collection of personal data. The lawsuit brought forward by the director of the Competition Law Forum could see Facebook's parent firm Meta paying UK users a whopping £44 million. Well, here to break down these stories, it's Charles Arthur, technology journalist and author of a string of influential books, the latest of which is Social Warming, the dangerous and polarising effects of social media. Charles, great to see you here on The Money as ever. Thanks for joining us. What do you make of this lawsuit brought against the mighty Facebook? Has it got a hope?
So the form of it is, it's a class action lawsuit where unless you opt out of it, then you're included in it as a Facebook user. And it's brought by a legal expert, Dr. Liza Lovedell-Gormson, who wrote a paper back in June of 2019 where she made this case, but in a sort of formal academic way, which was to say that Facebook doesn't recompense you, the user of Facebook, for all the benefit that it gets out of you, the user, being on Facebook. So the fact that it's able to collect your data, that it's able to then use the fact that it has this data that it's got from you, and in effect connect you to advertisers or advertisers to you, because the advertisers come to Facebook, say, we want to find these people, can you put in touch? So she's saying Facebook should recompense you. But the difficulty is, if you've got a free service, how exactly is Facebook meant to do this? It seems like one of these things where it's great in theory, but the practice is rather different. I mean, I did actually write in my book Social Warming about an experiment in the US where people were paid to stay off Facebook. So they were quite regular Facebook users, and they settled for about $100 a month. And after the period of the trial had expired, they were actually quite happy if they were still being paid $100 a month to stay off it. I think it'd be difficult to make the case. I mean, I think it's one of these things where, it'd be nice. I mean, I would benefit. I was a Facebook user in the period that she's looking to sue over, which is 2015 to 2019. And the 44 million users would get around about £50 each. I'm not sure, though, that it's going to quite work. She's claiming that people don't know what they're signing up for, in effect, that they click through and accept terms of services and just don't care. But Facebook, I think, will be able to say, well, it's up to you to read the terms and conditions, and we make no promises of recompensing you for your data. So I think it's one of these things that adds to all the mood music around Facebook and the big tech giants about, surely you're a bit too big, you're exploiting us in some way. But I think the actual legal fine points of it are going to work for Facebook.
Fascinating stuff, Charles. We'll have to keep a close eye on that case. As you say, if it happens, then it has big implications. A Meta spokesman said, that's Facebook's parent company, people access our service for free. They choose our services because we deliver value for them, and they have meaningful control of what information they share on Meta's platform and who with. We've invested heavily to create tools that allow them to do so. Charles, let's go back to this Google investment in London. It really does, I think, reaffirm the UK's status and London's status in particular as the tech capital of Europe. That's my view. Is that your view?
Berlin does pretty well as well, actually. There's a very strong tech hub in Berlin, a lot of German investment there, a lot of investment from across Europe. It's one of these things where if a city becomes important, an important place for a small number of tech startups, then you'll find more. You also find the same sort of thing in Finland. So there's Oulu up in Finland, which used to be big for Nokia. When the mobile phone business of that died, it created lots of small startups. So again, you get these little pockets where perhaps once big companies start, but certainly, London's doing very well. London, Cambridge as well, has been known for a long time. Oxford for biotechnology as well.
I've noticed in my travels, I mean, particularly since I've been doing this show here on GB News, because we reach out so much to the regions, there are various other tech hubs that are really doing quite well in the UK. I mean, this won't be news to you, Charles, but I thought I'd mention it. Bournemouth, there's a big tech hub emerging there. Teesside has had a tech hub there for many, many years. It is the case, though, isn't it, that just as in so much of the economy, when it comes to tech, we need to level up.
It's true, though you do get sort of little areas which have specialisms. So Edinburgh is pretty strong for games. You have all the games companies up there, video games, coding. And it's one of these things, again, where, and it's a very well-recognised effect in economics, that if you have a company which is good at one thing, then it tends to attract more companies which will do the same sort of thing because they can trade off each other. They can use the experience of the other companies. They can get people who used to work at them. They can recruit from each other. And in effect, they pull each other up. So you get a sort of levelling up within these spaces, but you can get very different vibes between the different ones. So Cambridge, for example, very strong in artificial intelligence. Edinburgh, as I said, very strong in games. London is pretty strong in sort of anything, just because that's where all the money and all the people are. It's difficult to persuade people, given our transport links, to saying move to Teesside for something if they could be in London instead, or if they could be in Cambridge, which is in comparatively easy reach. It tends to come down to, well, what exactly is on offer? Is it really groundbreaking? Is it something that's really going to attract people? The interesting thing with this Google investment and the headcount is, I think there's an interesting question about, are these people who are going to be programmers? Are they really sort of people who are going to add to the intellectual value of the country, even if they're working for Google and actually coding for California? Because there's a wrinkle where people who are working for Google in the UK doing programming, in effect, their work is not being done for the UK. It all goes over to California for various tax reasons. And one might also ask, is Google going to be paying some more tax as a result of this? But I think that'll all shake out in the wash. And generally, Google's taking a big bet here on people coming back to offices.
As ever, Charles, you get to the root of the issue. Very interesting as ever. Fabulous to have you here on the money. Charles Arthur there, the tech journalist and the author, his latest book, Social Warming, the polarising effects of social media. Time now for my daily interview series, Money Talks. If you're a food lover and use social media, you've most definitely heard of Mob Kitchen. Founded in 2016, this online cooking and content platform has grown exponentially since creation, with a mission to help young students and professionals prepare restaurant-quality meals on a budget. From secretly flyering on his delivery bike to making home videos from his kitchen, Mob founder Ben Liebus has grown a brand with well over 1 million social media followers and published 4 best-selling cookbooks. And here he is on our latest Money Talks guest. It's Mob Kitchen's founder, Ben Liebus. Good to see Ben here in the On The Money studio. I referred to your brand as Mob Kitchen, but you're changing your name to
just Mob. We've dropped the kitchen.
Very, very postmodern. Absolutely fantastic. Why'd you do that?
Because as the brand has grown, we're branching into different areas. Yeah. We're looking at creating cookware. We're looking at creating tech products, and having more of a kind of a singular name is just going to allow us to be a bit more free with what we want to do with it in the future.
So this business started, you had the idea for it when you were a student. You're looking at student cuisine, such as it is. You thought there must be a better way. So this is basically an ongoing crusade against beans on toast. I like beans on toast.
Exactly. I like beans on toast as well, but when you're...
The right moment, there's nothing better.
7 nights a week, it becomes a bit of a problem. So, yeah, absolutely. I was at university. None of my mates were cooking. They weren't going to the sites that I, as a foodie, was going to. Jamie Oliver, BBC Good Food. I could see that their content was not really catering for the younger audience anymore. So when I graduated, I set up a page and a platform to make recipe video content for a kind of a student, young professional audience.
Now, you're obviously a very smart guy. You had an idea early. You went for it. I'm sure you had various other options of what you could do in life. Tell me about your state of mind, the doubts, the concerns, countered by the self-belief and the drive that actually helped you get this business off the ground. I'm sure it wasn't all plain sailing.
No, it wasn't. So, I mean, yeah, whenever you go into a business, I think that the key thing is that you are, resolutely certain and focused on that one goal and that one idea. And I think that with that certainty, it can pull you through all of the difficult moments. But yeah, absolutely. It took me a year and a half to really establish the audience and establish the business. The revenue stream is branded content, so we work with clients who feature their products within our videos that we then show to our audience. And that revenue stream didn't start for, 8, 9, 10 months. I was lucky enough to be able to move back home with mum and dad. Towards the end of the period, dad was basically saying, you got to get out now and leave the nest. So
on your way, son.
Yeah, exactly. So
tough love.
Yeah, absolutely. Which worked though, because I had to really show a lot of tenacity to pull the platform to the place where it needed to be in order to be kind of operating as a smooth business.
Well, you've used an important word there, if I may say so, tenacity. A saying I often use is that because it justifies my really strange personality, all progress is down to unreasonable people. That's certainly true in journalism. You've got to be obsessed, you've got to be driven, you've got to be focused, you've got to be a dog with a bone to land those really big stories, to pursue those campaigns, to seek out that information that nobody wants you to get in the public domain, except almost everybody, except the firms or whoever it is that you're attacking. I'm sure there were many times as Mob Kitchen, now Mob, was getting off the ground, hitting the ground, getting off the ground, where a lot of people said to you, Ben, look, you've got all these opportunities, you're obviously got a great education, just join a bank, just do this, do that. You had to be really stubborn and unreasonable.
Yeah, totally. And I think that word obsessive is definitely one that, friends and family and colleagues now have used to, describe my focus and drive to kind of, keep building Mob Kitchen to the next level. I think it's a very important attribute if you are going to want to create something that is as big as you hope it will be.
Now, let's get a little bit more technical. Bear in mind that a lot of our listeners and viewers won't be, tech gurus like you, me, for instance. Tell me about how you have used social media as opposed to just the internet to build your business, so Twitter, Instagram, and all the rest of them.
Yeah, so our whole business model relies on audience size. So the bigger the audience size, the bigger the clients, the bigger the commissions. So the whole mission from the beginning was building that audience size as efficiently as possible. And then when there wasn't any revenue coming in, you had to find ways to kind of hack that growth organically. And that is where social media can be incredibly powerful. You have the power in your own hands, in a phone or in a laptop, to create a page, create a brand name and a logo, start uploading content, sharing it, and, build your audience. And so, being able to share it with your friends and asking them to share it with their friends, you can create this kind of ripple effect. And that's incredibly powerful that in this day and age, you now have everything that you need in your hand to be able to create a brand and a business. And, it was all through social media. I now have a full-time team of 30 people working for Mob, and it's all from that.
Wow. And so when you use social media effectively in old money, your customer base is doing the marketing for you. It's like word of mouth on an enormous scale.
Absolutely, that is exactly it. And as long as you are, focused on maintaining, real quality of content, and you are upholding the principles of the brand. So, our key brand principles are that we make really affordable, accessible food that anyone across the UK can cook, that they can go to the store and pick up the ingredients with ease, come back home and whack a lovely dish together. As long as you're kind of upholding those principles, then the power of your audience to carry on kind of evangelizing your message and telling other people about your platform, is huge, and really, again, kind of allows for that ripple effect to occur.
You began in 2016, so obviously the business was well into its stride by the time we got to spring 2020 and lockdown. What happened during the pandemic? Certainly in my life, I ended up cooking a lot more during lockdown. I mean, as a journalist, I was out and about a lot during lockdown because we're an essential industry, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But a lot of people did cook more, and I guess Mob Kitchen benefited from that.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, more people were cooking and more people were online. So actually for us, it was kind of the perfect storm in terms of for the growth of our business, and really catalyze the audience growth and that kind of thing. And, we felt very privileged to be in a position where when people were struggling at home and also, wanting to turn to their kitchens as a way to switch off and enjoy themselves, we were in a position to kind of be able to make great content for them and keep them kind of happy and fed and entertained.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because of course, this pandemic has, for obviously many families, been tragic, and we're sorry for the loss that people have incurred. We've seen many businesses collapse, people's livelihoods completely destroyed, and yet, up from the ashes, there are companies like yours that are actually doing really well. You're obviously in sort of junior tech giant territory. Your business is clearly going to grow. That's the consensus. That gives you some responsibility, doesn't it? Not just towards your employees, but also this whole idea that the tech companies, their place in society. Just very briefly, Ben Liebers, what are your thoughts on how the tech giants should be using their power?
I think from my side and the way that I look at it, I think the thing that is most concerning is just the kind of level of addiction that definitely our generation, probably people a little, I'm 29 now, but
your generation, not mine. Yeah. You're very kind. I'm an old man.
But the way that they are so kind of like tuned into these platforms, and I think definitely, I guess we're a bit more media, but definitely the big tech platforms have a responsibility to introduce features within their apps that allow people to switch off and take a step back. Because, whenever you are at a dinner or a meal with someone who is a bit younger now, it is slightly terrifying seeing the way in which they're glued to their phones.
Well, in my experience, cooking for my kids, there's nothing like making a really good meal to get them to put their phones down and not at the dinner table. Nice. So for that, I thank you. Ben Liebers, all the best with your business.
Thank you.
The founder of what we must now call Mob. That was Ben Liebers, founder of Mob Kitchen. That's it for today. Thanks for joining me. We'll be back on Monday, as ever, same time, same place. But for now, have a great weekend. This is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan, and that was On the Money.
Hello again. Some parts woke up with dense fog this morning, but that will mostly be replaced by sunshine today. Some low cloud and fog will linger, and it'll be damp in the far north as this weather front clears, but the rain tending to peter out. On a broad scale, the weather is dominated by a large area of high pressure with light winds and dry weather for the vast majority. And once most of that fog lifts, we will see some sunny spells across much of England, Wales into eastern Scotland. But a few fog patches will remain, for example, parts of the West Midlands, perhaps parts of southwest England, seeing that stubborn fog. And where that fog lingers, it will be chilly, temperatures not getting out of the low single figures. Otherwise, 6 to 8 Celsius in the south, a bit milder for the north of Scotland, even if it is rather damp here. 10 Celsius the max in the far north. Outbreaks of generally light rain and drizzle in the far north of Scotland. Some low cloud for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland. That will keep things frost and fog free here overnight. But fairly extensive low cloud, mist and fog will develop across large parts of England and Wales, particularly eastern England. Low cloud also affecting South Wales, central and southwest England through the night. And this low cloud, mist and fog will be slow to clear if it does clear during Saturday. Some places staying grey and gloomy through much of the day with poor visibility, especially for eastern England. Some brighter spells further north and west, but a few showers also possible for western areas and the far north. Another cold day where that fog and low cloud lingers, temperatures not rising above the low single figures. And then a lot of cloud remains into Saturday night. But one change on the way, a band of rain pushing into the far northwest as we end Saturday. That will sweep south across the country by Sunday, clearing the skies, leading to sunnier conditions in the north during Sunday, but cloud remains further south.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
On GB News with me, Nana Okwir, standing in for Alex today. It's an opportunity for women to share highs, lows, gripes and groans and top tips for living. So keeping me company today is comedian and singer Jonathan Cogan.
Hello, how you doing?
And here's what else is coming up on the show. Britain's leading psychology body has been criticised for encouraging psychologists to call their clients derogatory terms if they request it. Apparently, it's more inclusive. But is it acceptable? The woman who has accused Prince Andrew of sexually abusing her